I'm getting a very strong sense that 2020 is going to be an amazing year. With all the massive changes, political, economic changes that we had in the world at us. Do you remember many years ago, about 10 years ago, companies had the 2020 vision?
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're there.
And I'm surprised as well that in probably the last month, people are rolling it out like it's some fantastic creative, almost that it surprised them. We're here and now we need a 2020 vision. So I've seen it.
Yeah, well, they're starting to do a 2030 now.
Well, my word. Doesn't quite have the ring to it though, does it? Like that whole 2020 perfect sight.
Exactly.
I wonder how many of the plans actually were anywhere near accurate, and how many stuck with it. That I'd be keen to see that in the sense of, they're launched with such vigor, and this is the guiding light, the North Star. We were talking about this internally the other day. How many words can you get in for vision, mission, purpose, raison d'etre, North Star, guiding light? So we went through to sort of pick them apart and go, what do they each mean? Are they all trying to say the same thing, or is there a distinct difference between them?
Yeah, and I would add to the fact that the focus around the linguistics, the articulation of a word, is many times a bit of a red herring, because imagine if you mean similar things, having a North Star, having a purpose, having a whatever you want to call it. The real art is, of course, you need to articulate that, but the real art is to convert that into all the very uncomfortable alignments in your organization, to not blame anybody else but you, and to actually have the courage to drive that into alignment with those visions or whatever those are. It's a bit too easy. I mean, I don't want to undermine this. It's relatively easy to come up with those statements, and yet believing that those words have magic powers, I think it's a bit of a kid's game.
Yeah. And like, for my side of things on that is, we work so hard at the words and ensuring that they actually mean something. And then we'll help organizations, of course, launch those things with such meaning. But the problem is then, how quickly do they drop it, change it, dilute it, start referencing something else completely? And
correct.
I know you've got to
be... but you can't blame the words. So the words, the clarity of the words is a very important starting point. But it's not sufficient. But if you think of this in terms of just us, us as humans, we are very good at articulating, hey, I'm not going to do this again, or I am going to do this. And there is clarity around what a good relationship with your parents would look like. Or, that. And we spend, lots of people spend lots of time talking to friends and counselors and saying, that's kind of that I want to be. And yet, this huge gap between the articulation and the actual expression of this becoming a habit, not even a behavior, but just a habit, which is ideal, right?
Yeah.
I think that shows up before you even noticing it. That's what we're going to get when we talk about change. I would imagine that even when people call you to say, can you just help us engage people? I want my team to do this. I want them to, work better together, be more innovative, embrace digital, have a stronger impact in the market. So even when they say that, I think in the back of their mind, there is a tension for most people where they think, gosh, come on, I want to be able to do the right things. I want to do what we say in our marketing messages, in our strap lines, for a better world together and building better financial futures or putting patients first or whatever those things are. I believe, honestly, that people would love to do that.
Yeah.
And yet they struggle with almost in their minds, right? The perception that short term is going to kill them, and they have to keep that conversation as a futuristic one for someday that is going to happen. But, if you were in my shoes, in my day-to-day interactions and pressures and deadlines and quarterly results or whatever that is, they will immediately displace the big conversation, and they replace it by telling people what to do. But we've been together in lots of events where people will say the right things. They'll conclude on, we must work better together. And then and there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's perfect. It's great. And I believe that at that moment, people do want it. They're not playing games. But I think that they struggle a lot with having the courage to translate that into practice. So I think the activation is essential, absolutely essential, because otherwise you have no direction. The only way you really, really change a culture is by getting into what's going on every day and adjusting every bit, what we call the moments of truth. And having the courage to say, listen, that was the vision, or whatever you want to call it, with your value statements and your behaviors, and that's all great stuff. But it's input. That's not output. That is simply taking that as an input and almost hand-holding an organization so that every moment of truth, the weekly meetings that they have with the middle manager, the performance management processes and systems, the way you hire somebody, the way you even attract somebody to want to work with you. From that moment, you need to be starting to connect that with that vision that you set that you really want.
Yeah.
But of course, and it's very frustrating for people because I think they realize that they get very excited in an activation event, but they might be starting to have a sense of deja vu.
Yeah.
Of like, gosh, we done this 2 years ago. What happened with 2020 vision, for example, in this case?
Yeah. And that's, there's a few things in that. What you've just said is, one, there isn't the frequency of this type of thing happening. So depending on the time that you join that journey of an organization, it could be 3 years before you even attend an event or an activation whereby everybody once again gets aligned behind the reason you exist as an organization. Some people might be fortunate, they join an organization just as they're doing one, and they go in with such great, like excitement, enthusiasm. But then I know your take on this is, but what then? And, we see that again a lot. You need to create that moment in time. And ideally that is, from a selfish point of view, of course, ideally that is a regular thing. And it's all employees. It's not just senior leaders, because they are under pressure. And the briefs and the things that you tend to get are to try and address an immediate problem, and therefore try and spend as maximum time on the problem rather than actually reinvigorating everybody behind the purpose. And in doing so, then you unleash the energy, agility, camaraderie of the people. But instead, there's always that, we don't need to do the purpose. We don't need to do that. We just need to get on and crack this problem. And actually, everything we've done, and I'm sure you're the same, is if you reignite the passion in that purpose, the rest tends to, great momentum once again behind it. So I know, that's one of the wishes for next year, is that more organizations take the time out, new decade, and just go, When did we last stop and go, this is why we exist? From a genuine perspective, we're here in this world to do this.
And this is what we always discuss, what's going to happen with an event where you finally got everyone together to focus on the right things.
Mm-hmm.
It frustrates me, to be honest, sometimes when I can almost see that, give it 2 weeks, all that excitement is gonna wash away in contact with reality.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess I feel that's what kind of wakes me up, right, in the morning when I say, I know that that's human behavior. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
How do you scaffold this so that you hold it into all the processes and systems and messages and ways of working, and you infect absolutely everything that happens in our organization, so that purpose is not just something that you write on posters. You can do it if you want to, but it really goes beyond the conversation, and it starts to be the way in which we do what we do.
Yeah.
And that's very exciting. And I think that from an events perspective, from an activation perspective, having a regular checkpoint is very healthy, where you're saying, okay, guys, we are on a journey. What has been happening? Is this a good time to kind of just take this one notch up and go even further with our purpose?
Yeah.
Rather than this thing that kind of starts and then washes away until 2 years later that you have a new CEO with a new vision.
I was in a meeting where the chair of the meeting, who was the head of, I guess, the highest paid authority in the room at that point, he said to remember to act like it was your own business, but have the humility to accept that it's not, which I thought was hugely deflating for everybody in the room.
So that's the point, isn't it? Is I think human behavior is a bit, once you understand how we're made, how our hardware and software works, you get to know that talking about behaviors is a booby prize. I can list behaviors at work, at home, in a church. Churches have been struggling with this for years. Like love your neighbor. This has been written and reproduced and repeated every Sunday. Yeah. And yet behaviors don't follow. So we know that that's the case. We know that a stop sign doesn't mean stop in some countries, and it's or a speed limit is kind of it doesn't drive the right behaviors, but actually creates beliefs around, oh gosh, I don't want to lose my license. So it doesn't really work. You will get commitment, passion, empowerment, collaboration, innovation, whatever you want to call it, only if people believe the right beliefs. Yeah, people have the right thoughts. So I can't just tell you, hey, come on, be empowered, be engaged. There is no shortcut to having those behaviors as an outcome if the reasons why you're coming to work are just to make it to the next quarter or just to get your bonus at the end of the year. You won't get that transformation that people talk about because you say so. You get them to agree that that's important. Mm-hmm. You get it excited temporarily about what it would look like, but then you'll get to what we have today, which is, we're about to enter 2020, and a lot of people will remember that 5 years ago they had a 2020 vision. Yeah, and they'll be able to explain why it just didn't happen. He left, she left. So many things happened. The economic crisis, this Brexit, political changes. And they'll explain it out. Yeah, and then get ready to repeat the same mantra for 2025 or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about going back to the idea of a moment, creating that shared moment of meaning, or an activation as we call it. It's huge in the sense that I can't think of another medium whereby in his sort of time, people talk about time boxing things, in a small period of time, you can really energize and unleash
completely.
A group, a collective of people behind ultimately what we're all in work to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been asked to do a lot of virtual stuff, but actually getting people face to face in one room, it just does magic. And we are now having an online virtual conversation. It's perfect and it's great, but for those moments, I believe you actually need people in a room or many rooms, talking and imagining and getting emotional about that shared and agreed purpose. Chatting about it in the coffee areas afterwards, coming back to it, challenging it. So it's messier, it's more organic than something you can do linearly online.
And we've got wonderful experience. What I would say is, I don't know why every organization of a particular size does not have one day a year which is just focused on ultimately their purpose. We've got clients who do wonderfully, who call it Vision Day, where it really invigorates the organization behind the customer for a day. They maintain it across the year with campaigns that are all focused on the patient or the customer, which is brilliant. It doesn't have to be a big production, but it does have to be for everybody rather than just senior leaders.
I agree.
Because they're too busy to effectively then replicate what they've encountered to get even beyond their most immediate reports.
What I've seen many times is that when organizations go kind of rather conservative and they get the top 200, 300 people, then normally what happens is that they get excited and they get asked, or they do it by themselves. They replicate this anyway, many, many times in their local offices, sometimes kind of losing some part of the message in translation as they just take it to their people. When you manage to actually get them into one, when they hear it for the first time together, there is a completely different energy, and the buy-in is much greater, making it easier when they go back to the office to say, listen, so what happened when we were in Lisbon or in London last week? How can we now reproduce that, giving our reality? And that's where I always say, this is what I talk about, the moments of truth. You need to, at the same time as that is happening, almost drive the alignment of all the moments of truth in our organization to that vision. So, because otherwise, those are the things that are going to take away that excitement very easily. They sap the energy. And that has to do with, your awards, your rewards, your training, your comps, your recruitment, your promotions, every single element in your HR lifespan. And also other moments of truth that don't get managed by HR, like your internal business meetings and how you prioritize work. Everything needs to be coherent with that. Otherwise, that conversation that you created will be fighting against the rituals and the processes. And of course, they're going to win. They'll win because people will be afraid of missing out on their bonuses or on their promotions. So that huge coherence, I think is very important. And when we did this right, you can see that the next time the organization gets together, they recognize the new culture and how that culture has driven the business in a particular direction. And they can fine tune and adjust and learn and keep moving the bar. which it is very exciting.
Yeah, and there's again a couple of things on that which just made me think. The idea of virtual meetings is something that I have to say, one of my fondest projects ever was to try and connect an EMEA organization. They had all contributed to the success of a 10-year vision. And the brief was, we want to recognize the success of this, but we want to recognize everybody's part in that. And there wasn't going to be the opportunity to bring 4,500 people to one location. But the challenge had been set. If I can watch Netflix at whatever time of day or night and it's flawless, why can I not connect all of my countries together for this moment of recognition? And I have to say, it was the most daunting thing at the time. But this idea of we set out with a very clear purpose collectively to make this happen for the organization. The first time in their history, they would all be together to recognize the moment. So the solution ended up being, we piggybacked the 16 sales conferences that were starting the years in all the countries from the Nordics down to South Africa, from Russia to Portugal. And the content we pushed out to the countries to say, tell us a moment you were inspired, surprised, and felt proud to work for the organization. And they could submit that anyway, little short films, poems, letters, whatever. And we were amazed, we got 535 of the 4,500 submit stories. And of the stories, the amount that focused on camaraderie over and above necessarily the purpose blew us away. People wanted to talk about, remember the time when there was an ash cloud and we got stuck in Barcelona and we hired buses and we drove our customers back to their homes. The office went on fire, like all of that. And it was a hugely uniting thing. So the smallest office in South Africa suddenly felt really proud because they contributed, let's say it was 70% of their operation had contributed to the stories that got told that day. But that moment of just being able to see and hear from everybody was incredible. It was, the equivalent of the Eurovision Song Contest, but with real meaningful material, I would say.
That's very good. And it's lovely when they you're talking about camaraderie, but camaraderie that emerges in the realm of purpose, because it's camaraderie about what they did for a customer.
Yes.
No camaraderie on, wow, we had an amazing night out and we got drunk together.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's, we pulled together when the stakes were, high, when we had no resources, when we were struggling with that, crash in the IT platform. We pulled together. But if you look at this and what makes people proud, and then pull together and get true collaboration, is because they have a very strong connection with a purpose, not with a slogan. It's not the slogan.
Yeah.
It's the true purpose. It's, gosh, I don't know what the industry you're talking about, but we were able to get the customers out when in the ashes, probably transport and travel. We were able to get them out. Mm-hmm. And that is what fills up a human being's heart. And then you can stretch, you can work hard, you can come up with ideas. That's when it makes you most innovative. Not because you get a bonus for innovation or a little training course on agility. You'll be agile as a consequence of being relentless or having a relentless focus on adding value to whoever you want to add value to. Yeah. Which is never yourself. And and you heard me say this, it's not about yourself.
Well, this is brilliant because it links into that. We've looked at all the work that we have done, where the greatest impact is, where our passion is, and your passion clearly as well, you know, we can really make an impact for the employees, but at the same time, for the business is win-win. Because if you remind people of that purpose, it's amazing then how they start to become agile, because they start going, but remember, the reason we exist is to do this or that.
And if you think about it, that is what connects people who are frontline and people who are in the back office equally. Because if the person who is sitting behind a desk, you know, what I call the engine room mindset. You know, you are down there, you can't see your clients, you can't touch what a customer really does. But when you start to connect with the purpose and understand, you know, as I experienced recently, an actuary in a big insurance company being passionate about his calculations so that somebody else, a commercial person, could make promises that they could later on honor, so that an underwriter can pay a claim. That whole chain of value, where you have to connect all the bits to understand, yeah, it's great, I love this place, I get great coffee and a good career, and it looks great on my CV to work here, and that's good stuff, and they pay me good money. But also, I'm making this company resilient, I'm making this company stay here for another 100 years and make money, and this is good, the shareholders are very happy. And also, and equally, and is we're making millions of people's lives more resilient by selling peace of mind. And we do it as we are in the business of selling peace of mind. And that shared purpose that permeates the individual, organizational, and then social elements of purpose is what gets all this garbage that we normally have to deal with, which is, you know, gosh, us and them, and the islands of power, and the not enough, and engagement going down, and people, you know, talent leaving or struggling to get talent back in, or getting people to innovate. We put, you know, digital stuff, lots of analytics, and people don't use the analytics, or they don't share their data because they fear that they will be made redundant or less powerful. So unless purpose is what's underpinning everything else, all the other bits will struggle to show up.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the beauty of the work that we get to do, which is to engage people in that conversation of purpose, but not as a, I don't know if you've seen these things, not as a box ticking exercise.
No, exactly. Examples would be, you know, functions effectively just forced to be together, and each of those functions coming along pretty much with a arms folded, you know, like, I'm going to sit here and let's see what this is going to be like.
Absolutely.
But when purpose was brought to life right up front, you know, you saw it, you joined us in the second day for that, but, you know, it was amazing. The arms dropped. There was this sort of like, oh yeah, what I'm doing is for that. And actually that person sat there, and everybody around my table, we may not agree on day to day, but actually we were, you know, we're all behind the greater purpose. We just forgot. Hey, we forgot what it was, or we're too busy fighting our corners about things that don't really, you know, not that they don't really matter, but you know what I mean.
Reinforcing the very old model that you have to kind of balance work and life.
Yeah.
Because work is a pain in the neck, and therefore you need to be compensated for it. Well, those cultures don't make it. They really don't make it. They can look successful today. They know that, you know, fast forward a few years, they won't have the speed of change and the appetite and the bite and the commitment to turn around and drive and reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And again, it's down to to purpose, but not a slogan purpose, like a real purpose.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a few things for me. The series that we're writing on, picking up on specific bits that we've spoke about here. One is employee engagement has never been higher, but yet nothing's particularly changing in terms of performance. So we're starting to see briefs and it'll be said, our engagement scores could not be any higher, but nothing's changing around here. And the difference is because, yes, engagement in the sense that people know more about what the organization's doing or what's going on is a passive thing. And that's why we talk about activation, which is because of knowing that I'm now going to do this. And that's the real difference. The second being internal comms, professionals being seen to be just the conduit to getting a message out, as opposed to, genuinely being the people who can create change. Like for some reason all too often they don't have a seat at the executive level.
Correct.
So therefore all the decisions and discussions are had, and then they're told to communicate the strategy or the change, transition, whatever it's going to be. So that's a big thing for us, is they're doing fantastic work, but handcuffed.
I was going to say the hands tied, almost ring fence to, listen, you own the channel, you own the newsletters and the intranet, and deal with that. And you are a one-way communicator. Yeah. And then you can, at best, run a survey and tell us back what people think, which is a very old way of thinking. And I know there's a lot of comms people who are brilliant, who would say, this is exactly what I'm frustrated about, because I can see that, for my message to convert into true engagement, I would need to actually talk to somebody outside my remit and get them to change something. We need to change the way we recruit somebody, or to promote somebody else, or manage people daily, or to change the behaviors of the senior team, for example. I always distinguished here, if you redefine engagement and you almost double click on engagement and you distinguish two things from it, and you separate commitment to make a difference, commitment, versus, you distinguish that from attachment. Attachment is, am I depending on this organization for my life? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the engagement surveys are designed to measure attachment, not commitment. So yes, do you understand the vision? Yeah. That is like, okay, if you don't understand the vision, I'm going to tell someone off, because your boss should be accountable for teaching it. The question is not whether you understand it, is, does it light you up? Does it excite you? Does the vision, it's not whether it's clear or not, because you can study by heart something. It's like poetry. You can study a poem by heart, but that doesn't make you passionate. Does this poem drive you crazy? And does it make you want to do things that otherwise you wouldn't be doing? Yeah. So in engagement, it's the same thing. It's like a marriage. Are you ticking all the boxes? Are you sticking together? Yes. Because we're attached, because there's a legal agreement, and we're doing all the right thing. Or are you in love? And of course you can have that. You can be attached, but when people talk about love, they talk about commitment, not attachment. Yeah. And I think the same thing is happening in organizations. Unfortunately, the metrics, which is very easy to hang on to because it's a number, they are now unquestionably implemented once a year, and then everybody spends hours and hours and hours talking about it, coming up with plans. Yeah. If we show up as poor in communication on the vision or whatever, then, oh gosh, we're going to start to meet a bit more often and communicate. Okay, good point. Yeah. But it's almost correcting behaviors rather than addressing the cause of this. As you know, the best way to understand a culture is not to run a survey, is to spend a week going undercover into the culture, living there, hearing the conversations by the water cooler, and understanding not what people say and how do people answer a question, a survey question, but actually going one step beyond, which is, why do they say what they say? And what are the things that they wouldn't say in a survey?
Yeah.
Why do they do what they do? And those things people they cannot express with words, and they wouldn't do it in a survey. So that's why you get high engagement, but it's not real engagement.
And nothing changing. Yeah. Just, there's a couple of things on that. Somebody famous somewhere apparently said that good strategies often fail not because of the strategy itself, but because people simply didn't know what to do with it. And that's something that we see and believe passionately about, is you need to get on, hands-on, like physically, take a strategy that's been devised and I'm sure is brilliant, but actually then in your day-to-day, you need to consider, well, how can I contribute? What's my part in that? And the companies that we see that do a vision day or a purpose day, they're the ones that really help the frontline people connect with the strategy, with the vision, mission, purpose. Suddenly it makes sense. And you can understand why you might spend your time working on spreadsheets, or how important it is that a certain delivery goes out, but unless you give people the opportunity to figure it out for themselves, if they're always just being broadcast at and told, there is no emotive connection. And that's what the live bit. So for 2020, for me, we've got to see more of those, purpose days, I would say, from organizations. What about you?
What I hope for 2020 is a lot more of those CEOs who are realizing that they're getting a bit tired. This is the change fatigue kicking in, and they're realizing, gosh, I'm not going to go through the motions once again, and I'm just having the road show where I just go tell people what my strategy is without, it's not really a strategy, what my announcement is, but actually more committed to going much deeper into this, having more courage to engage in this sort of conversations, to say, listen, there are ways of changing cultures very quickly. It doesn't have to take years. In fact, it takes about 3 months to change a culture. But you need a lot of courage. Once that you look at a moment of truth, and it happens to me a lot when I say, listen, this event that you're doing doesn't connect with your purpose, or this process, this extra signature that you're requesting in your process doesn't really align with what you've been talking about in terms of the speed at which you want to react to your customers. Last week I was in a big event, and this was in financial services, and everybody, all the top team, was in absolute agreement on we must focus on customers. It is the essential, adding value, making their lives better through what we produce. Absolutely great stuff, right? When they had their breakouts and they started working on the detail, they immediately reverted. At that moment, even during the event, they reverted to, but hold on, we can't do that because our system doesn't do that. I don't know, the IT guys don't really work together as a partner, so we might want to just outsource it. So they were fearful to challenge themselves as an organization, and that vision of purpose was easily kind of diluting, even in front of our own eyes. And I was challenging this. Actually, I did challenge the CEO at that point to saying, it's happening now. what chances have you got for next week? So,
Yeah.
So I want more of those engaging on. This is not a one-off. This is something that you need to build as part of how you structure your year.
Yeah.
It has to involve everyone in the organization, absolutely everyone, and it has to get into not just the communication event, which is essential, but also has to go deeper into what you can't see in a communication event.
Yeah.
Working on that immediate translation into every moment of truth, even at the point where it hurts a bit.
Yeah.
To say, gosh, I'm going to have to stop doing this. I'm going to start doing something else, but not theoretically, but actually in reality. I see that, but I'm an optimist. I think that so many people are having that sense of deja vu.
Yeah.
That we're going to have a lot of this happening. Lots of good quality projects going on. Lots of companies really, really wanting to change this.
Bring them on. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, everything you just said about the courage bit is, again, rings so true.
And it is beautiful when you can see culture-driven organizations, because you get, they make more money. They have better time. They waste less time, and you get that very creative passion. A lot of organizations nowadays don't need to be told to collaborate or to innovate. A lot of people are, on the contrary, it's like, oh, slow down, because we are, we still need to deliver on what we said we're going to do. And I wish for that happening a lot more.